Welcome everybody to another episode of Fins Nation. I'm your host, Louis Sung, and today we're going to be discussing Christian Wilkins. Now, we all know at this point that the Miami Dolphins really have a decision to make regarding Christian Wilkins. We all kind of feel like it's inevitable that they will re-sign him. We feel like he's too important to the defense, he's too important to the team as a whole, plus he's still front and center with all of their marketing, so it feels like that Christian Wilkins will eventually come back and get a new contract. Now, here is the problem, that Dexter Lawrence just recently signed a contract that amounts to 4 years and $90 million. Now that in itself makes things awkward already, but now what makes it even more difficult for the Dolphins is that the New York Jets' own Quinn Williams is getting ready to have a contract extension as well, and he is making it a point to say that he is not going to be happy unless he's given a really good contract. So now the standard is Dexter Lawrence, 4 years, $90 million. So Quinn Williams is probably going to be looking for more than that. He may be looking for something along the lines of maybe 4 years, $100 million. And if that is the case, then what does that leave with Christian Wilkins? Does Christian Wilkins deserve to be paid that much? Does Christian Wilkins deserve to be given a deal that's even bigger than Dexter Lawrence's? Some people would say no. Some people would say yes, and I'll let you know where I stand on that in just a few minutes. But before that, really quick, just want to go ahead and mention that this show is brought to you by You Brake Wheel Fix. You Brake Wheel Fix is the complete automotive wheel solution. Ever parked too close to the sidewalk curb? You Brake Wheel Fix specializes in the repair of damaged wheels from bends, cracks, and curb rash. Or maybe your wheels are faded or peeling. You don't need to replace them, as You Brake Wheel Fix can refinish them to like new. Offering complete refinish options through powder coating, machining, and polishing, You Brake Wheel Fix is the answer to all of your wheel needs. And if you're just looking to give your ride a new look, You Brake Wheel Fix also offers many car customizing options, such as new custom wheels and tires from your favorite brands, performance upgrades, window tinting, and suspension modifications. Located just south of Aventura, you can reach Mark and his staff at 305-748-0112 or online at youbrakewheelfix.com. They are really active on all social media platforms at You Brake Wheel Fix, so shoot them a DM on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter and get an estimate in just minutes. So don't delay, go to You Brake Wheel Fix and start customizing your ride to show off your Dolphins fandom today. This show is also brought to you by PrizePicks.com. PrizePicks.com is a revolutionary fantasy platform where you can now pick up to 6 different players across professional sports leagues. Whether that's the NFL, the NBA, the MLB, one of each, it's up to you to decide. Just choose whether your chosen player will get more or less than their projected stat. They give you free squares, special Taco Tuesday promos, Flex Friday specials to where you can get your money back if you lose, or multiply the amount of money you can normally win. With offers like that, it's hard to justify not signing up for Prize Picks if you are any kind of a fantasy sports fan. So use the promo code 5, that's F-I-V-E, and they will match up to $100 on your initial deposit when you sign up. Again, that's promo code 5, F-I-V-E. Go to prizepicks.com, deposit your $100, and let Prize Picks give you $100 of their dollars for you to play with, and get started winning today. Okay, folks, so let's go ahead and get into this actual discussion here. So earlier yesterday, I went ahead and I made a discussion about Christian Wilkins. I made the tweets. So this tweet was basically talking about how people are looking at Dexter Lawrence's contract and the contract that Quinn Williams is going to be asking for, and there were some people basically saying that Quinn Williams is not going to be worth that much. And I basically said straight up, I think that they're wrong. I think that anybody who thinks that Christian Wilkins is not worth the money is just wrong. Because you look at everything that Christian Wilkins does, on the field, off of the field, you see what is basically an elite defensive tackle. Is he somebody that is always in the discussion of the elite defensive tackles? No, and I think that's partially because usually, once again, it's that whole Miami stigma. The only time we talk about star players is when they make themselves a star somewhere else, and then when they join the Dolphins, they talk about that specific star, at least for a little while. They give that star some level of attention until it's been a while since they've been on the team, and then they kind of let them fall by the wayside. I can't remember the last time that I heard somebody talk about specifically Jalen Ramsey as being a top 5 corner in the NFL. I guess when they talk about the Dolphins in general, they kind of don't have a choice at this point. And even then, there are some, I think it was CBS, that basically said as much talent as the Dolphins have, they're still gonna go, what was it, 8-9? I think it was either 9 or 8 and 8 or 8 and 9. Either way, it's kind of an insult because you have the Los Angeles Rams, who just lost one of their star players in Jalen Ramsey, and they have an incredibly aging Matthew Stafford as their quarterback, and they have the Rams winning more games than the Dolphins. What exactly is it about the Rams, other than the fact that they are the Los Angeles Rams, that makes them have a better record than the Miami Dolphins? Is the argument that the Rams have a much softer schedule? Is it the argument that the Dolphins may not have a healthy quarterback for most of the year? What are you basing this off of, other than the fact that you're not a particularly big Dolphins fan? But either way, that's not what the discussion is about. This discussion is about Christian Wilkins. I believe that the Miami Dolphins will pay him, and they should pay him. Now, how much they're going to pay him is a different discussion. I think it might be something along the lines of what Dexter Lawrence got. He may end up making a little bit more than what Dexter Lawrence got. Maybe something along the lines of a 4-year, $95 million contract, $96 million contract. But you know what? Even if that seems like a lot of money, I would go ahead and pay it. Because what Christian Wilkins does, just disrupting plays, especially in 2022, yet that's when you really got to see him come into his own as an elite defensive tackle in this league. But there are people out there, and these are replies that I got from this exact tweet. And almost all of them, I got at least 4 of them. And 3 of them we're discussing about how Christian Wilkins is not a pass rusher. I got one that says he does everything I put that he does everything except pressure the QB. Don't leave that out, says one person. He has minimal pass rush. And then another person says Wilkins isn't Williams. Once again, bring it up. Ready for this? Williams is a better pass rusher. I still remember when the Miami Dolphins signed Ndamukong Suh to what was one heck of a contract. It was considered big for the time. Probably nowadays it's not so impressive. What Suh signed was a 6-year, $114 million contract, which put his average salary at $19 million per year. Now, Christian Wilkins, who some people may say is not as good as Ndamukong Suh was in his prime, is set to make even more than that. At least that's what it looks like on paper. But you know what? Even if that is what it takes, that's just the new market. Ndamukong Suh signed his contract with the Dolphins back in 2015. The year is 2023. The salary cap has skyrocketed since that time. And contracts are just getting larger and larger along with the whole inflation thing. Basically, it's NFL inflation. Every single player that does a really good job, the contracts keep getting higher and higher because that's what the market dictates. The more salary cap space that there is, the more room there is to pay players, players are going to continue to get paid. And I'm not going to say that Christian Wilkins is not worth it just because he's not an effective pass rusher, which, by the way, I firmly believe is not a true statement. Just because Christian Wilkins is not somebody who ends up getting a lot as far as sacks numbers go, that does not mean he's not constantly in the backfield causing chaos. Just to give a little bit of perspective here, let's just go ahead and run through some numbers here. Since people love to throw out numbers out there, because they're talking about, oh, Quinn Williams has a way more sacks, and Dexter Lawrence is so much better and so much more worth it than Quinn Williams. Look. Here are the sack numbers for Christian Wilkins, okay? In 2021, he had 4.5 sacks. That's a career high. And in last year, 2022, he had 3.5 sacks. Okay, not very impressive. Obviously, the difference here is that with Quinn Williams, he actually has 12 sacks last season. So, yes, that's very impressive. Obviously, it's a lot. But here's a big difference here, and this is where I'm going to go ahead and say, again, there is a difference in their games. Just because one player is a pass rusher and the other one is not necessarily as much of a pass rusher, here's the big difference, okay? So you look at Quinn Williams' total tackles, right? So let's talk about tackling. In 2019, that's his rookie year, he only played in 13 games, granted. He had 28 tackles total. He had 2.5 sacks, but he had 28 tackles. 2020, he played in 13 games, had 55 tackles. In 2021, he played in 15 games, had 53 tackles. He had 6 sacks, but only 53 tackles. And 7 tackles for a loss. Okay, not bad. In 2022, this was the year that he made the Pro Bowl. He had 12 sacks. He played in 16 games, 55 tackles. 12 of them were for tackles for a loss. Okay, that's fine. Now, let's take a look at Christian Wilkins. So Christian Wilkins, in his rookie year, 2019, he had 2 sacks for 56 tackles, okay? 3 tackles for loss. 2020, 1.5 sacks, 47 total tackles, and 4 tackles for a loss. All right, fine. Now here's where things get interesting. So again, his career year as far as sacks go, in 2021, he had 4.5 sacks. All right, fine. Did you know that he forced a fumble? Did you know that he recovered a fumble? Those numbers are very similar to what Quinn Williams has as far as that is concerned. Causing turnovers, Christian Wilkins is really good at that. Now, he had 10 tackles for a loss, at least in that year. That's 3 more than Quinn Williams had. And now, here's the real kicker here, folks. Watch this. 2022, Christian Wilkins. He played in all 17 games. He deflected 6 passes at the line of scrimmage. 6 passes at the line of scrimmage he deflected. Let's take a look at Let's take a look at Quinn Williams. Yep, he had about 4 of them. So he does the same thing too. So again, very comparable numbers. Same as the guy who we're saying is not worth paying because he's not as good as the other guy. But Quinn Williams, let me reiterate. Quinn Williams in 2022 had 55 tackles total. Total. You want to go to Christian Wilkins' numbers now? Christian Wilkins had 98 tackles last season. 16 of them were tackles for a loss. 16 tackles for a loss for Christian Wilkins. 98 total. That leads the entire NFL last season for defensive linemen. Not just tackles, defensive linemen, period. Defensive ends, defensive tackles, nose tackle, whatever. Christian Wilkins was above and beyond every single one of them. So yeah, Quinn Williams had 12 sacks, but he only had 55 tackles. Christian Wilkins had over 40 more tackles all year long than Quinn Williams did. So, great. Quinn Williams knows how to chase quarterbacks. You know what the Miami Dolphins are going to be doing this upcoming season? They have Vic Fangio there running the show, and they have so many pass rushers right now, it's almost scary. They brought back Andrew Van Ginkel. Vic Fangio personally convinced Andrew Van Ginkel to come back to Miami so that way he could continue on the path that he had him on. Vic Fangio is looking at this team right now, these players on this roster, and is saying, I can make something special out of you guys. So he convinces Andrew Van Ginkel to come back. Okay, what else you got? Jalen Phillips. Obviously, now he's in his 3rd year, and he is going to skyrocket. He's been getting better and better with no end in sight. You don't even know what his ceiling could be at this point. So you have that on there. Emmanuel Ogbah's coming back, and he's talking about how he wants to make sure that he takes care of business because the Miami Dolphins are taking care of him. Gotta love the sound of loyalty there, especially if he's wondering in the back of his mind, are they going to cut me because I'm too expensive later down the line? I don't know if that's what he's thinking because most people would probably look at it that way, but he's intent to get the job done. I'm appreciative of that. Emmanuel Ogbah knows how to get to the quarterback. You have Bradley Chubb, who is a long-time known star pass rusher for the Denver Broncos. So he's going to be coming back and playing in the defense that made him really, really good with Vic Fangio. They've worked together before. They know how each other ticks. Let's go ahead and see what they can do together. They went ahead and got Malik Reed, who also had a career year with Vic Fangio. So everything seems to keep coming together here. So if Christian Wilkins does not happen to have a massive amount of sacks, I don't particularly care if he continues to do what he's been doing. Because again, there are certain things that just don't show up in the stat sheet. If you saw what happened last season and you watched Christian Wilkins play game in and game out, his motor was relentless. He was constantly causing chaos. He was forcing quarterbacks off of their reads, and they would throw the ball away, and it would result in an incompletion, or maybe an interception, or it would cause somebody to make a mistake that they weren't supposed to make because Christian Wilkins was right there in their face getting ready to make somebody miserable. And also, just ignoring all that, it's always fun. This is just a little side piece here. It's so much fun to watch Christian Wilkins troll the offense. I still remember him grabbing Alvin Kamara's towel off out of his back pocket in the middle of the game, and Kamara turned around and grabbed it back from him and started getting upset. And then I think Kamara ended up getting penalized for being over the top about the whole thing. So that was hysterical. I love Christian Wilkins just for that. So the fact that he's also a superstar player, I'm going to say he's a superstar defensive tackle. He deserves to be in that distinction if he continues to play the way that he's been playing. For 2 straight years, he led the NFL for defensive linemen in tackles. If you desperately want to, you can talk about how Cameron Hayward technically tied him in 2021. But even then, you want to put an asterisk on it. Okay, fine. But you can't say that Christian Wilkins doesn't deserve to get some level of credibility for that. He doesn't deserve some kind of recognition for that. Those are numbers that most defensive linemen don't even get even close to. And Christian Wilkins did it twice in 2 years. Twice in a row, he did it. So why are we not giving Christian Wilkins more respect? Oh, because he doesn't get sacks. This is the exact same discussion that we had way back when Ndamukong Suh signed with the Miami Dolphins. Ndamukong Suh was brought in, and he was supposed to be superstar defensive tackle Ndamukong Suh. He was going to be the guy who could get to the quarterback whenever he felt like it, and he could just make things happen in the backfield. And you know what? He kind of did. He just didn't get the sack numbers that everybody was looking for. Even as far back as when Christian Wilkins was drafted, he was still being looked at that way. Everybody was looking at him and saying, why isn't he getting more sacks? He should be getting more sacks. He's not getting enough sacks. He's not as good as we want him to be. People, that was literally his job at Clemson. It was not to get sacks. His job at Clemson, back in college, was to basically make it so that his teammates could get the sacks. Christian Wilkins got in the way of other people so that Farrell and guys like him could make incredible things happen. And Farrell got drafted by the Raiders, and things went super for him, right? Farrell has not been the same guy that he was in college. In fact, now he's with the San Francisco 49ers trying to get his career back on track. Meanwhile, Christian Wilkins, who was, again, he's the guy who opened the door for Farrell to get drafted. He's still doing a fantastic job, continuing to do what he did in college, exactly what he was on brand for doing. He is not a sack master. He is not the guy who's going to flatten the quarterback every other play. He is the guy who opens the door for chaos and allows other players to make incredible plays. Just imagine for a moment, you have Christian Wilkins and now Zach Sealer as well, by the way. They have become quite a duo. They are opening the door in the middle so that way Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb and Andrew Van Ginkel and Malik Reed and Emmanuel Ogbah, they can all go ballistic and chase after the quarterback on their own. All because Christian Wilkins is making it so that they don't necessarily have a really good escape hatch. No, Christian Wilkins may not get credited with a sack, but if the quarterback does try to get up the middle, more often than not, he'll be able to stop them after like 2 yards gaining, and that's about it. What more can you ask from your defensive tackle? Again, if the only thing you care about is sacks, then I'm sorry, I don't know what to tell you. I don't think that you really understand what Christian Wilkins' role is in this team, and I don't think that you truly understand how hard it is to find somebody who can do this job. Do not underestimate Christian Wilkins' role in this defense. Do not underestimate exactly what it is that he accomplishes just by being there, doing what he does, making things happen. He doesn't get on the stat sheet. He makes it more difficult because all these quarterbacks have to run around avoiding him so that they can get the ball away. They obviously see him coming. They're not going to just stand there and let him kill him. So what that means, basically, once again, Christian Wilkins deserves every penny he's eventually going to get. Whether it's with Miami or someone else, he's going to deserve that money. I'm still thinking that it's inevitable that the Miami Dolphins end up paying him. I think he will deserve to get paid, and I think that the Miami Dolphins realize that eventually they're going to have to give him that money because he deserves every single bit of it. So anybody who's saying that Christian Wilkins is not as good as Quinn Williams or Dexter Lawrence because he doesn't get sacks, you guys, I would encourage you to look again at what happened in the 2022 season. I would encourage you to watch what he does on every single play. I would encourage you to see how important he is to the Miami Dolphins, not just on the field, but off the field. Christian Wilkins is a superstar defensive tackle. He deserves to be paid as much, and I am still hoping, and I think that it will eventually happen, that Christian Wilkins will become a Miami Dolphin for a good long time and be the anchor for this defense. That's going to be it for this show. Thank you all so much for watching. If you haven't already checked it out, go to youbreakwheelfix.com and you can get your estimate in just minutes. They'll be able to give your ride the ultimate Dolphins makeover if that's what you so desire. Just reach out to them at 305-748-0112 or again at youbreakwheelfix.com and go to prizepicks.com. Use the promo code 5, that's FIVE, and they will match up to $100 on your initial deposit when you sign up. Again, it's promo code 5, FIVE. Go to prizepicks.com. Get started winning today. That's going to be it for this show. Thank you all so much for joining us. We will see you again tomorrow for another episode of Fins Nation.